Here's a challenge. It's a simple one. I want you to close your eyes for just a second. Okay? Now I want you to not, under any circumstances, think of a white bear. Don't picture its fur. Don't picture its claws. Don't think about it walking across an ice floe. Anything else is fine. Just no white bear. Okay, open your eyes. How'd that go? If you're like 99% of the human population, that bear was the only thing in your head. This little mental trick isn't just a game. It's actually a doorway into one of the most frustrating, paradoxical, and frankly annoying glitches in the human operating system. It's why you slice the golf ball exactly where the water hazard is. It's why you spill the drink specifically because you were trying so hard not to spill it. And it's why when you're desperate to fall asleep before a big meeting, your brain decides that 3 a.m. is the perfect time to review every embarrassing thing you've done since middle school. And it's why you shoot nines in competition when you never shoot them in practice. This is called ironic process theory. And it suggests that the harder you strive for perfection, the harder you try to suppress a mistake, the more likely you are to summon that mistake into existence. Today we're going to look at why your brain does this, how it creates the phenomenon known as the yips, and how, weirdly enough, the only way to win might be to actually stop trying to win. So let's go back to that white bear. That specific image actually comes from Fyodor Dostoevsky. In his 1863 essay, Winter Notes on Summer Impressions, he wrote, "Try to pose for yourself this task, not to think of a polar bear, and you will see that cursed thing will come to mind every minute." Fast forward about 120 years, a social psychologist named Daniel Wegner stumbles across this quote, and he decides to test it. He brings people into a lab, sits them down, and tells them to verbalize their stream of consciousness for 5 minutes. But there's one rule. Do not think of a white bear. If you do, ring this bell. The bell didn't just ring, it rang constantly. On average, people thought of the bear more than once per minute. But here's the kicker. When Wagner then told a second group, okay, now try to think of a white bear, the group had previously suppressed the thought about it even more than the group that was just thinking about it normally. It's called the rebound effect. Suppressing a thought makes it sticky. It hypercharges it. Wegner eventually formalized this into ironic process theory in 1994. And this model is fascinating because it visualizes the brain as having two separate agents working at the same time. Agent number one is called the operating process. This is your conscious effort. It's the part of you that says, I'm going to look for things that are not a white bear. It scans for distractions. It looks at the desk, the lamp, the wall. It's intentional, and it requires energy. It's like a spotlight. You have to manually point. But then there's agent number two, the monitoring process. This agent is unconscious. It's automatic, and it doesn't require much energy. Its only job is to scan your mind for failure. It's the security guard checking to make sure the white bear isn't there. And here's the glitch. To check for the white bear, the monitoring process has to know what a white bear looks like. It has to keep a little template of the forbidden thought active in the background so it can recognize it if it pops up. So while your conscious mind is saying, look at the lamp, your unconscious monitor is whispering, white bear? Is that a white bear? No. How about over there? Is that a white bear? Under normal conditions, this is fine. Your conscious operating process is strong enough to drown out the quiet whispering of the monitor. You can distract yourself, and this is the crux of the whole theory, the operating process is easily exhausted. It requires cognitive fuel, glucose, focus, mental bandwidth. The monitor, however, is automatic. It runs on autopilot. It never gets tired. So imagine you are stressed, you're anxious, you're tired, you're under cognitive load. Your conscious operating process starts to fail. It gets sluggish. It stops finding distractions. But the monitor keeps running. It keeps shouting, white bear, white bear. And because your conscious defense is down, that background checking process becomes the only thing you hear. The system designed to keep the thought away becomes the system that highlights it. Now, thinking about a bear is one thing, but what happens when this glitch hits your motor skills? When it affects your body? This is where we get into the excruciating territory of the yips. All of us archers cringe at that thought. The yips are this mysterious loss of fine motor skill in athletes. It usually happens in high precision, low velocity movements. In archery, it's our execution movements. In golf, it might be putting or teeing off. In baseball, it could be throwing to first base. In fact, there was a second baseman for the LA Dodgers named Steve Sax in 1983. He suddenly lost the ability to make a routine throw to first base. He threw it into the stands. He threw it into the dirt. The more he tried to fix it, the worse it got. It actually became known as the Steve Sax syndrome. He had the physical ability. I mean, he was a professional athlete. But the mental wiring had just short-circuited. Ironic process theory gives us a terrifyingly clear example. When an athlete is under high pressure, they stop trusting their automatic muscle memory, what psychologists call procedural memory. Instead, they then try to consciously control the movement. They engage that operating process. They think, don't throw it wide, don't throw it short. So now you have the operating process trying to steer the arm, but because of the pressure, the monitoring process is on high alert. It's scanning for the error. It's scanning for wide. It is highlighting the exact trajectory you're trying to avoid. And because the brain and the body are connected, that monitoring process doesn't just stay in the head. It primes the muscles. When your brain focuses on wide, left, to avoid it, it actually micro-activates the muscles required to throw the ball wide left. It's a phenomenon called ironic error. The brain prepares the body for the very disaster it's monitoring for. We see this in neuroscience when we look at the prefrontal cortex versus the anterior cingulate cortex, or ACC. The prefrontal cortex is your CEO. It's trying to manage the situation, and the ACC is your conflict detector. It's the alarm bell. When you're choking, the ACC is firing like crazy, signaling error, error, error. This flood of neural noise disrupts the smooth subconscious flow of the motor cortex. Essentially, you're thinking too hard. You're trying to manually drive a car that is designed to be self-driving. This doesn't just happen on the baseball field. It happens at dinner parties. It happens in bed. Let's talk about insomnia, for example. You're lying in bed. You know you have to be up in 4 hours. You tell yourself, I must sleep. I have to sleep. That is your operating process. But your monitoring process kicks in to check, are we asleep yet? No. How about now? No. Every time the monitor checks, it wakes you up a little bit more. The desire to sleep becomes the specific cause of your wakefulness. There's also a heavier side to this called stereotype threat. This is a well-documented psychological phenomenon where if you are part of a group that has a negative stereotype about performance, say a stereotype that you are someone who always chokes in competition, and you are reminded of that stereotype right before a tournament, you will perform worse. Why? Ironic processing. You are so worried about confirming the stereotype that you dedicate a huge chunk of your cognitive bandwidth to monitoring for mistakes. Don't miss. Don't freeze up. Don't punch. Don't be tense. Don't miss. Don't miss. Don't miss. That monitoring eats up the brain power you actually needed to run the shot and stay focused on the positive. The fear of the stereotype makes the stereotype come true. So this all sounds like a trap, a cruel circular trap wired into our biology. If trying to stop the mistake causes the mistake, what are we supposed to do? Just give up? Sort of. The solution to ironic process theory is almost as paradoxical as the problem itself. The first strategy comes from Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor. He called it paradoxical intention. The idea is to try to do the thing that you are afraid of. If you're an insomniac, Frankl would tell you to get into bed and try as hard as you can to stay awake. Tell yourself, I am not allowed to sleep. I must keep my eyes open. What happens? When you switch your goal to staying awake, you stop monitoring for sleep. The anxiety of not sleeping vanishes because, well, you're trying not to sleep. The monitoring process stands down. The operating process relaxes, and usually you fall asleep in 10 minutes. In public speaking, if you're terrified of your hands shaking, try to make them shake. Try to shake them as hard as you can. You'll find it's actually really difficult to do it on command. By inviting the monster in, you take away its power. As an archer, fully inviting the nervousness in before a tournament. By telling yourself you won't get nervous, any adrenaline spike will terrify you, but by inviting it in, the adrenaline spike doesn't come in the same way. You take the power away. The second solution is acceptance, often used in acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT. This is about retraining how you view the monitoring process. Instead of fighting the white bear, you invite the bear to the party. You say, oh, look, there's a thought about a white bear. That's interesting. And then you go back to whatever you were doing. You don't try to push it out the door. You just let it sit in the corner. And when you stop fighting the thought, you stop fueling the monitoring system. You reduce the cognitive load. You stop the rebound effect. For archers or anyone performing under pressure, the key is to shift focus from avoidance to approach. Don't tell yourself, don't shoot a 9. Tell yourself, execute the release. Your brain is terrible at processing negatives. It doesn't really understand. Don't do X. It just pictures X. So give it a positive target. Give the operating process something to look at rather than something to look away from. The takeaway here is that our brains are control freaks. We think that if we just try harder, if we just police our thoughts harder, we'll be perfect. But the mind is slippery. It's like a bar of wet soap. The harder you squeeze, the faster it shoots out of your hand. So the next time you're stressed and that white bear or that fear of failure pops into your head, don't fight it. Don't ring the bell. Just let it be. Ironically, letting go of control might be the only way to actually get it back.